And then lastly, with respect to this concept, he says, hence we have the astonishing fact that these epochs of so-called plenitude, the height of times, have always felt in the depths of their consciousness a special form of sadness. A special form of sadness. Okay, what is this sadness? The genius behind Jose Ortega y Gasset is the following, is that Gasset recognizes that modernity, modern culture, is inherently a saddened culture, right? Whereas nostalgia, the problem with nostalgia is one, the inherent pessimism, two, sort of this fixed historical gaze in the past, this inability to change, this inability to adapt. Well, the antithesis to that, being modernity, also has its problem. Because what happens with modernity is that once the thing is actualized for that generation inherently now becomes saddened. Depression sets in. We recognize that all of the attempts to civilize, right, all of the attempts to make modern have been actualized, and we become idle. We become incredibly idle. And there's a saying, I forget how it goes, it's like idle hands are the tool of the devil or something like that. When you become idle, when you've actualized all the goals of your predecessors, all the goals of previous generation, what do? Well, you become saddened. There's nothing to do. Man, what do we do? I'm bored. I'm incredibly bored. Right? And idle hands become mischievous, right? So there's no coincidence in the fact that there is a direct relationship now between the idea of modernity and increased violence, between modernity and the situation within this three-part tier where the masses want to suppress the minority groups. Why? Because we've actualized everything for ourselves, right? This arrogance, this disgusting arrogance that we've done it all, right? Because of our extremely genius minds, we've been able to figure it all out, and there's nothing else I need to figure out now because everything's solved. Like the arrogance, the absolute arrogance of people, and there's so many people like that. There's so many institutions like that that actually have good intent, right? That actually have good intent, that want to actualize something, some desire, some goal, some ambition, some dream of the predecessor, of the previous generation, which was at a lower historical level. And once it's actualized, they focus so much on actualizing that once it's actualized, they've immediately realized, holy crap, we never set any other goals. We have no more goals. So, word of caution. Strong word of caution. For those who support the idea of modernity, for those who drive to actualize the desires and the goals, to see satisfied the desires and the goals of our predecessors, you must also recognize that the instant that goal is satisfied, you have to immediately, even before it's satisfied, have another desire, another goal, which Fichte would say is posited, right? Which you posit into the future, and that's P-O-S-I-T, which you, like deposit, which you posit into some future-oriented place that will lend your generation an inability to complete. I know that I have just completed this thing that my predecessors have wanted, and I feel proud in it. But I'm not going to be on top of the top of the mountains waving the flag of victory, because then you're doomed, right? Then the arrogance has consumed you. Immediately, as soon as I complete that goal, as soon as I've actualized that goal, I immediately recognize there's something I haven't done. What is that thing? That thing is this. Our generations will not be able to satisfy this thing because it's so complicated, it's so time-consuming, it involves so much intellectual might and resources and power and contributions from society that I know we're not going to be able to fix this now. But I set that as a goal for future generations to solve. And then we go up another level, and we go up another level. That's how you do this, right? If you simply say that we are going to be the generation that actualizes the desires of the past, then once that is actualized, you've completely made yourself obsolete. Period. Because that's a genius. I mean, I don't know what to say. What we then recognize is the following, right? the concept for Gasset of modernity evolves out of the plenitude of our time. And that's what this is called, right? This, in relation to the idea of modernity, unlike this nostalgia for the past, unlike this golden age idea, is called the plenitude of our time, right? So the concept of modernity evolves out of this idea of the plenitude of our time. And thus, as I said, modernity becomes boring, it becomes without passion, and essentially it becomes sad. And what he says specifically, Gasset says specifically, is the faith in modern culture was a gloomy one, right? You put too much, right? You haven't diversified your faith, right? You haven't diversified your hope. All of your hope was in one thing. Just like good stock, just like good economic investment, you diversify your portfolio. A little bit in stock, a little bit in bonds, a little bit in some outside resources, and so on. If you invest everything, all your money, all your capital in one thing, and that thing crashes, well, you've lost it all. If you invest all your hope, all your faith, all your ambitions into one thing, and it is actualized, well, you're happy the instant it's actualized, but it's like any Christmas present. By noon, you're outside doing something else, you're loafing on the couch watching a game, sleeping. The present has immediately lost its intrigue. So the faith in modern culture was a gloomy one. It meant that tomorrow was to be, in all essentials, similar to today, right? This idea of a plateau. We've struggled. We finally attained. Nothing can ever get better than we are. And now you just sort of just plateau it out. Was to be, in all essentials, similar to today, that plateau. That progress consisted merely in advancing for all time to be along a road identical to the one already under our feet. That we have advanced to a point at which we can no longer advance. The audacity, the arrogance of such a claim, the naivete not to plan, not to posit something more complicated. Take the humble approach. I can't figure this out, but I want someone to figure this thing out. Help me figure this thing out. Let's together try and figure out this thing. Posit that in the future and now work towards that. Rather than doing that, this plateau, this boredom, this sameness, this average everyday existence, which is most ingeniously represented in the classic top 5 best movies of all time for me, American Beauty, right? The beauty of suburbia, right? The average, everyday, phenomenal, boring sameness of just, we all drive the same car, we all have roughly the same economic status, we all go to the same soccer games, we all have basically the same line of employment, our wives all look the same, our children all act the same, we're all taking the same prescription medication, we all mow our grass the same time, Edward Scissorhand, we all leave for work the same time, in the same cars, in the same colors, and oh my God! And we wonder why suicide rates are so high, right? And we wonder why everyone's popping Xanax and depression pills, right? I would be depressed as hell too. I really would, right? If every day I woke up and everyone around me was doing the same crap I was doing, right? Well, why are they doing that? Well, because in a sense we've engineered suburbia physically, right? To do that to people, right? It's the same crap. How do you get out of that? How do you break free? How do you escape, right? To Walden Pond, right? How do you go off in this transcendental place and just zone out? Just get totally zooted. Just how do you do it? Well, if you can't physically leave the structure, right? I can't leave the structure. Well, I find escapes in other things. And just really quick, one of the applications to this would be, and you can watch my video called Popcorn Flavored Ice Cream, is to create, all right? And we'll see where Gasset takes this. But for me, just, you know, I get into Gasset sometimes so much that it's just like he gets me just totally going. And you recognize, yeah, I'm a prisoner of my own accomplishments, right? In a sense, right? And this is not woe is me, because what ends up happening is that the masses, the vast majority of us, are prisoners to this very same thing. We don't have any desire.